Hey developers, welcome back to the programming fields. If you are looking to supercharge your data tables in Laravel 11, you have landed in the right spot. In today's video, we are diving deep into column-specific searches and custom filters using YajraBox HTML Builder. These features will make your tables not just dynamic but incredibly powerful for real-world applications. In the first part of this series, we already set up our Laravel 11 project with Vite and YajraBox to create fully dynamic tables. If you missed it, make sure to check out that video first. I will provide that link in the description because in that video we covered project setup, integrating Vite, and table rendering functionalities using YajraBox DataTable class and HTML Builder. Now today we will build on that foundation and explore advanced features. So let's start with column-specific search. This feature allows users to filter data in individual columns like searching for a user by name, email, date, or we can add custom filters just like date range. So based on the chosen date or entered input, the user's record will be filtered out. So we will begin by customizing the columns in our controller, and for enabling the column-specific search, we will be adding everything in the server side itself in the Yajra DataTable class without touching client side. Okay, so let's quickly jump into the VS Code editor. Here we have the DataTable class as users DataTable, and we had created this in the previous video. So this is inside app DataTables folder, and this DataTable class has been imported in the user controller. And here we have one index function, and in the index view we have rendered the data tables only. Here we don't have any custom scripts to initialize the data table, and here we are pushing the data table scripts so that it will render entire things. Now for enabling the column search, we don't have to do anything here in the blade file. We will be managing everything from this user data table class. Let me collapse this. But before implementing that column search, let me quickly recap the entire class here. So inside this class we have this DataTable function, and here we added the action columns as edit and delete. And for edit and delete, I have used bootstrap icons. And here I am passing the date before rendering this to the DataTable. So if I will come to the browser, here we can see we have the date passed before rendering this to the DataTable. And also we have the edit and delete button, and these buttons have been generated using bootstrap icons. Now next we have this query function. Inside this we have the user model instance because we have created this data table class for the user. So this is fetching the data from the user model, and this user model has been imported here at this top. Next we have the column functions. Inside the column functions, we had specified these columns from the users table which we want to display in the front end. Here we can add more columns according to our database table. Alright, and here we have the action button, and this is computed, and in the bottom we have the file name function, and this function will be triggered when we will export data in the CSV or Excel. In that case, this will generate the file name using users module, and this will append the timestamp here. So this is all about the user data table class here. Now related to column search and custom filters, we will write our logic here inside this class itself. And before that, I will come to the official documentation of YajraBox. So here we have the YajraBox Laravel data tables. Inside this, here we have the plugins. Under this we have the HTML. Let's navigate to this. Inside this, firstly I will come to the events and callbacks. Okay, if I will scroll down, here data tables provide different callbacks and events, and based on these events and callbacks we can perform different action. If we'll talk about this draw callback, this function will call every time when data tables will perform any AJAX request, and based on that when the table will redraw. Similarly, we have this init complete. So this init complete will render when the data table initialization has been completed. So I will be using this init complete callback in order to append input for the column specific search. So when this data table has been rendered successfully, that will append input search here in this header, similar to our jQuery data table playlist in which we appended the input search in the header itself. So here I have appended that demo as well. Here after this header, we appended the input field for the column specific search. So similar to this way, I will append this in the YajraBox HTML Builder. And those input fields will be appended in the server side itself. So I will be using this callback function init complete, and in order to add this callback function, Yajra data table provides parameters function. So in the sidebar, if we'll check here, we have the parameters. Inside this, we have the HTML builder parameters. Okay. So inside the HTML builder, we can use the parameters function in order to manage parameters like paging, searching, info, and here we can use the callback function. So initially we will have to use this parameters function inside the HTML builder. So I will come to the code editor and we will have to manage columns, and this is related to columns. So we will have to add it inside this HTML function. This is referring to the table column. So here after this minified ajax, I will call parameters function. Okay. And this parameters function accepts array. So we will have to specify array just like this. Now inside this array, we will have to add the callback. So I will be using init complete callback that we have discussed here. If I will come to the events and callbacks again, here we have the init complete. Let's copy this callback. Let's add it here in the form of array. So we will have to specify it like this, init complete. Now inside this init complete array, we will have to add callback function. So we'll be adding function here, and inside this I will be writing JS function. Okay. So for managing this, we will be using DataTable API. So I will write this dot API function, and I will assign this to a variable as, let's suppose, const table. Okay. So this will initialize the current table here as table. We have used the DataTable API. So this has specified this dot API. Now I want to append the input field in the header itself. So I will find the table header first. So we can use this table instance to find the table header. So I will write $table dot table function, and by using this table function, we can find the header of this table. This is fine. And again I will assign this to a variable. So this will return an object of the header. So better I will specify in a variable as const $thead. Okay. Now next we will have to find the tr inside this thead. So if I will come to the browser, inside the application, if I will inspect, and inside this thead we have the tr. So again we will have to clone this entire tr including th, so that we can append input field inside every th. Okay. So let's find all the th available inside this tr. So firstly we will have to find the tr inside this thead. So I will write $thead dot find, and here we will have to find the tr. So inside this single quote, I'm using double quote here, alright, because we have used single quote outside. So after finding the tr, I will clone this tr. So I will be using this dot clone function, and inside that row I will add one class as, let's suppose, filter. Alright, and again I will assign this to a variable as const. So I will specify one variable as filter row. Okay, this is fine. Now we have cloned the tr inside the same thead by adding a new class as filter. So this will return the entire row as an object here. Now inside this row we will have to find the th. So I will write $filter row dot find th, and I will iterate every th here. So I will write dot each function. Okay, just like this. Now inside this function, I will capture the current th. So I will write const current th as $this. Alright, and again I will use dollar here. Now inside the current th, I will append input field. So I will use current th.html function, and better I will create one more variable to generate the input field. So I will write const input is equals to $, and I will use backtick here, just like this. Inside this, I will create input type is equals to text. I will add bootstrap class as form control. I will use placeholder, and here I will add search, and inside this I want to pass the th text so that it will append the field here, just like name, email, created at and updated at. So I will find it using the current th.text function. So I will write $current th.text, just like this. Okay, this is fine. Now inside this .html, I will append this input. Alright, now we have appended the input field in every th. Now we have to append the entire row inside the main t head. Okay, so we have to append this filter row in the t head. So I will write $thead.append, and inside this we will have to pass this $filter row. Okay, this is fine. Let's save and come to the browser. Let's refresh. Yes, here we can see we have one new row added, and inside this row, against every th, we have one input field for the search. Alright, now here I don't want the search for the action field, because again we have the buttons in the action. So I will exclude this action. So what I will do, I will pass the custom class in the th. Okay, so that based on that class, we can identify for which column we have to exclude the search filter. So I will pass one class as no search here inside the columns. So after this text center, I will pass one more class as no search. This is fine. Let's come to the browser. Let's refresh. Inside the th, we have a class added as no search. Now based on this class, I will exclude adding the input field for this search. So let's add one more condition here. Before adding this input field, if $current th.has class function, I will be checking using has class if that th has class. Okay, and inside this we have to check class as no search. So this will find those th who has class as no search. So I have to exclude that particular th for adding input field. So I will add not condition here, so that this will find only those th who has not the no search class. And inside this if condition, I will add these two lines so that it will check if that th has not class no search, then it will add the input field. Okay, this is fine. Now let's come to the browser. Let's refresh. Yes, we can see that input field has been removed, and here this is showing label only. So let's remove this label as well so that it will be empty. Else I will empty that th. So inside this else part, I will write current th dot empty function. Okay, this is fine. Let's refresh now. Yes, that is empty. Now regarding this id column, let's increase some width so that we will have the search input field visible properly. So inside this, we have the column ID. Let's add width as, let's suppose 80. This will be like 80 pixel. Let's refresh. We'll have to increase it more. So I will set it to 120. Let me refresh. Okay. Same thing, we can increase width for this created at and updated at column. And also we can add bootstrap class to reduce this input field size. So I will add one more class as form control SM here. Form control SM, just like this. Now if we refresh, yes, we have the input field size reduced, so the placeholder is visible properly. Alright. So the search columns have been added properly here. Now we will have to implement the search filter. So when we will type anything here, this should fire the AJAX call again, and based on that AJAX call, this should filter the entire user's request based on the given input. Alright. Currently, this is not triggering the AJAX call on input interaction. But before implementing that search, we will have to prevent the sort functionality to be triggered from the parent element based on the interaction on this input field. That means when we are trying to interact on the input field, let's suppose if I will interact on this input email field to type something, then we can see this triggered this sorting functionality. Same thing, if I will click on this created at, the sort functionality has activated for this column. So every time when I'm trying to interact on any input field, this is triggering the sorting functionality, and based on that, this is triggering the AJAX call. So we will have to prevent this on input interaction. So let's add one more click event on input click action. So let's come to the code editor, and here after adding the input, I will add click event. So I will write $input, and this is basically this input field because this is returning one object here. So I will add input dot on click function. Okay. And I will capture the click event here. So I will write event dot stop propagation. Alright. So this will stop the sorting behavior on input interaction. Let's check this. If you'll refresh, and if you'll try to click on input field name, here we can see now AJAX is not triggering for that sorting. So we have prevented that. Now we will have to apply the search filter so that when we will type something, this should apply the filter so that the user's record will be filtered out. So let's add the functionality here. So we will write $input dot on key up, change and clear. We will have to apply for these all events, and inside this I will write function. Okay. Inside this we will have to draw the table again, but before drawing the table, I will add one condition to check the index of the input field. That means if we interacted with the name only, then this should apply the name filter only. So we will have to match the index based on the selected input. So we will have to add one condition, if table, and here table is referring to this current table. Alright. If table dot column, I will be using this column function. Inside this I will pass the current column, that is current th, dot index function dot search not equals to this dot value. Okay. Then I will draw the table with the current search value. So I will copy this same and I will paste it here. Table dot column current th dot index dot search, and inside this search I will pass the current value. So I will write this dot value. Okay. And here we missed this column function. It will be like this, and here we will have to write dot draw function. Okay, this is fine. Now let's come to the browser. Let's refresh. Now let's try to search with the name again. Yes, when we entered S, this triggered the AJAX call, and in the payload we have the search value for the name field as S, and based on that it filtered few records here. If we'll see, it has filtered 569. Now let's add few more characters here to search. So I will type Sarah. Yes, we can see this has filtered the particular record. If we'll search for email, yes, this has searched the email. If we'll reset, it fetched all the records. Similarly, we can apply for the date filter. If we will search for 23, we don't have any records. If we'll search for 24, and we can pass a specific month and date here. Okay. So this is working properly. So the column specific search is working properly. Now we will see how we can apply the custom filter inside this. So for adding the custom filter, firstly we will have to add one input field for, let's suppose, date search that we want to search here. So I want to apply a date range filter here. So I will be adding start and end date again, just similar to this demo. So let's add the input fields here. So I will come to the code editor, and inside this index blade, inside this container, I will create row and column. Okay. I will create one form group again. Inside this, let's create a label for start date, and I will add label as start date. Next I will add one input field as input type date. Class will be form control sm. Okay, and I will add id as start date. I will copy and paste it again for the end date. Alright, this will be for search filter. If I will refresh, here we have the start and end date. Let me remove this form control sm class. Alright, and again I will set this in a single row. So I will add display flags class here, align items center. This is fine, and here I will add width 100. So this is displaying in a single line, and I will give some space between these start and end date. So I will add margin start of 3. Yes, this is fine, and I will give margin bottom in the row here, margin bottom of 3. Okay, this is fine. So when I will select any date, start and end date, based on the start and end date, again this should filter the user's record. So I will write this input change event again in the server side itself without writing this in the client side. So inside this same init complete callbacks, we can add this event. So I will come to the DataTable class, and here after this filter row, here this is closing, and thereafter I will write function for the date filter. Alright, so I will capture the selected date from start and end date. So I will write start date. So we will have to write for start and end date. Alright, so we can add start date, end date. Okay, dot on change function. Inside this, I will extract the start and end date. So I will define one variable as const start date, and I will fetch the start date from the input selector itself. So I will write start date dot val, and this will be for end date. Okay, and for the date range filter, so we needed both dates in order to apply date range. So I will add if start date and end date. Okay, then we will have to trigger the ajax call. So here we will write table dot ajax because we have the table instance here. Okay, so we'll write table dot ajax dot reload function, just like this. Let's save, come to the browser, let's refresh, and let's inspect it. Navigate to the network tab, and let me select the start date and end date here. After choosing the start and end date, this triggered the ajax call here. Alright, now we will have to pass the start and end date in the payload here in this ajax call, so that based on this start and end date, we can apply the filter in the server side for the column. So we can pass the payload from the server side itself. So inside the HTML function, here we have the minified ajax function. So in the previous video, we already discussed about this minified ajax function. This is basically minifying the ajax request URL here, this URL, and this is reducing this length of this URL. So if we want to pass any parameters to the server side from the client side itself, then we can use this minified ajax function. Alright, this is similar to ajax function, or alternatively we can use ajax function itself, just like ajax. So I will show you both approach here. Firstly, I will come to the documentation, and here we have the minified ajax function. Inside this is HTML Builder minified ajax, and by using this we can pass the parameter. So this accepts 3 parameters here, we can see, and this will be URL where we want to fetch the data. Second is script, if we want to pass any JavaScript function, and the last parameter is array set of data. Here we can pass the parameter. So if we will using this minified ajax function, we will have to keep these 2 parameters empty, and in the third parameter we will pass the set of data. So I will follow this approach here. This has given the example. Okay, so I will come to this minified ajax first. I will commit this ajax function. First parameter will be empty, second will be null, and in the third parameter I will create one array, and we have to capture the start and end date from this selected date here. Alright, so again I will use this selector of that ID. We have the start date of this input field. Firstly, I will define a key on which I want to pass the parameter. So I will set a field as start date, and here I will have to form one array, and here we will have to specify the selector. So I will write dollar has a start date dot val. Okay, same thing for the end date. So I will replicate this. I will add end date, and here this will be end date. This is fine. Let's save, come to the browser, let's refresh. Now let's come to the network tab. Let me clear this, and I will select start date and end date here. Now let's come to the network request. Under the payload, if we'll scroll down, here we have the start date and end date. Now we will have to capture this payload in the server side in the DataTable function, so that based on this date we can perform the search query. So we can capture it here in the query function, because this is user model, and here we have to apply the search query inside this user model instance. So before applying the search query, I will add dump and die request function, because we don't have any request object here, This is basically user model. So I will print this request, and here I will replay this Ajax request. Now in the next request, we go to the request parameters, and if we scroll down, here we have the start and end date. So we can capture this directly using the request start date and request end date, just like this. Let's check this. Again, I will replay this Ajax request. Yeah, we got the start and end date here. Now based on these dates, I will apply the filter. So better I can store it in a variable as start date, and I will use null call seek operator here. Same thing for end date. Okay, and I will add if condition if we have start and end date. Then I will apply the search query. So firstly, I will cut this line from here, and I will initialize it at the top, just like this. I will assign this to a variable as $query, and here I will return this $query. Inside this if condition, if we have start and end date, then I will apply where between function. Okay, and I will apply this on created at date. Inside this array, I will pass start date, end date. This is fine, and this will return the final query after adding this where condition. Let's come to the browser. Let's refresh. Let me resize this, and here if I will select any date, let's suppose 3rd to 12th, yeah, date filter has been applied and we don't have any data between these dates. Now let's change this start date to back date 29th November, and we have the end date here. Let's change this to 3rd. Okay, we are getting all the records here because all the users data have been created on the same date using the factory class. Alright, so the date filter is also working properly here. Similar to this date range filter, you can create your own custom filters and you can add more parameter, and you can pass in the payload as we have passed this start and end date. And that's how you implement column specific search and custom filters in Laravel 11 with YajraBox HTML Builder and Vite. With these features, your tables are not just dynamic but user friendly and feature rich. Here we have implemented this column specific search and custom date filter without writing any JS functionality in the blade file. In the next part of this series, we will dive into advanced actions like exporting data, in which we will have different export options like export to Excel, CSV, we will have generate PDF, print, reload and reset actions. So stay tuned with Programming Fields, and if you find this video helpful, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe the Programming Fields channel so that you will be stay updated with the latest content. Until next time, happy coding.